Welcome to our podcast. This is Friends on Fire.
I'm Mike. I'm a lifelong devotee of financial independence. I even wrote a book about it.
And I'm Maggie, a newer convert, but just as passionate, especially on the intersection of minimalism and financial independence.
We're one and the same.
We are two like-minded friends who believe that talking about money with your friends and family opens the door to financial well-being.
The Friends on Fire podcast is about dispelling myths, building financial acumen, and sharing your financial independence journey with the people you care about.
This is Friends on Fire.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Maggie.
So we are at the midpoint of 2020.
It has been a weird year.
I was just thinking this has been a crazy year. It is, in some ways, feels like it's been 2 years, and in some ways it's flown by. I felt like it was just February, and somehow we're at the midpoint. Like time stopped during quarantine. Either way, we, according to the calendars out there, we're halfway through the year. And yeah, we set some goals and intentions that we publicly put out on this podcast for each of our 2020 goals. And we thought we'd do a check-in to talk about where we're at against each of our goals, and then have a little bit of a conversation about just, how we stay motivated during this quarantine and this, kind of unique time in the world that we are finding ourselves in right now.
And one of the principles of our personal finance strategy is to track and measure and set goals. We like to say what gets measured gets better. And so we are proponents of tracking your expenses, tracking your net worth, and setting goals and tracking against them. Because if you want to achieve something that is quite challenging, you need to figure out a effective way to go about tackling those problems. So one of the things we talked about in our episode 7 when we introduced goal setting was about the SMART goals framework, SMART. And so this was a way that you could go about setting effective goals. So the letters stand for specific, measurable, assignable, realistic, and time-related, SMART goals. And so we didn't do a terrific job making all of our goals, quote unquote, SMART, but some of them were. But one of the things that we need to focus on is the measuring part of this to see how well we are doing. And that's one of the things we wanted to check in on and compare notes.
Yeah. So we're going to go like, you go first, then I go, or you want to ping pong back and forth?
Let's ping pong back and forth because we have some of the similar ones.
Yeah, and the ones that are similar. Yeah. Okay. Let's do it.
Okay. So let's start with net worth growth.
I'm excited because we haven't actually shared.
Yeah, we have not shared our notes with each other.
Yeah.
All right. Net worth growth. We both had a 15% target.
Annual goal.
So in theory, we should be at about 7.5%. I'm at 3.2%.
Ooh.
Did you beat me?
Well, we can't all be winners, Mike. I did beat you. And mine's a little tricky because if you recall, I messed up tracking my net worth in January. I basically forgot to. By messed up, I mean I forgot to. So I have December's and then I have February's, and they're very different numbers. Mm-hmm. And then I also, which I thought you'd be impressed by, Mike, I took an average of December and February.
Okay.
And also did the net worth growth from that average, which was kind of a mix between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Which number would you like? I got like 3 different numbers there. Which one you want?
Pick what you
average?
Think January might have been versus January.
Okay. Well, that was kind of the average.
Yeah.
Then. So 11.4%.
Wow. That's incredible. But
you know why?
Because you make a lot more than I do?
Well, that too, yeah. Well, no, I mean, you say that, but I do like in the beginning of the year is when I get like a big bonus, some stock, some other things. And so that hit pre-travel industry recession. That's like the last good one I'm ever going to see. So I got to soak it up now. Yeah, I mean, point is I'll see more of my net worth growth in the first half of the year than the second half of the year. It's definitely like more heavily weighted because of when that money pays out. But also, I mean, I'm deferring so much of my compensation that I'm saving a lot more than I typically may have.
11% is outstanding. And one of the things...
It was 11.4%.
11.4% is outstanding. And one of the things that you've done is when the big market dip happened, you did not change course. You kind of stayed with it and you recovered all of it. I got out relatively early, but still have not recovered everything that I was at prior to that. which definitely hurt. And I will say that I am still expecting a further pullback in the market. I think everybody would agree that there is a disconnect between what is happening in the stock market and what's happening in the economy. So I don't feel bad or stupid about pulling a lot of my money out. It was in my mind, a very prudent, practical decision at the time and did not cost me a lot of money that you have capitalized on in this recovery. It could still happen though. But this is an important point to talk about, like what happens when you are not on track for your goals. So typically my net worth goal is if I am disciplined, I will hit it. And I have to be mindful about it, but it is not so far-fetched that I can't get it every single year, going back to the realistic part of the goal. So right now, I'm at 3.2%. I am not on track to hit my 15%. So what can I do?
But also, I mean, your net worth goal, real quick, did not predict a global pandemic.
Yeah, that's true.
And what has happened, right? Like, so, I mean, there's a lot of, like, when you set that goal, you might have been expecting a little bit of a recession, but like certainly not what's happened. So
yeah.
Anyways, keep going.
So there's two things that you can do when you find yourself off track from your goals. One is to change your strategy. I am not going to do that. I'm currently like mostly out of the market and then buying selectively into dips for certain stocks and investment opportunities. I'm also predicting another pretty significant drop in which I will get back in, and I could very well recover through the end of the year and hit that 15%. But it's not like a fundamental change in my strategy. I'm not going to go find some new revenue stream to go pursue. I'm just going to kind of stay the course with my original plan. The other thing that you can do if you're not going to pivot strategies is to reset your goals. And this might seem like a cop-out, but businesses do this all the time. You know, like we in finance, we set a forecast. If something changes like COVID-19, we have to reforecast the business. And nobody's saying like, well, we're going to stick with our original 2020 forecast because, you know, we don't want to look like failures. But like the world has changed. And so I haven't yet decided what my new net worth goal is going to be. I think 10% is going to be a reasonably aggressive goal at this point. And so I think I'm going to land on 10%. That's where I'm leaning towards right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that's just worth noting that's related to the point you were making, Mike, is as with all goals, and even just like more formal corporate goals or company goals that you might be bonused or whatever it against, you set a target and an intention. And even when you don't get a chance to adjust the goal, if you miss the goal, you know why you missed it. And either it was things you could or couldn't control, right? And so it, like I said earlier, you set that goal with a very different worldview than, you know, like things you never could have predicted that have happened in this world since then. And both of us set our goal with that in mind. And when and if we don't meet our goal, we'll feel okay that we still did mostly everything within our immediate control to do, right? Other than like trying to time the market and, you know, crazy things like that. But like, it's not like we missed it because we weren't disciplined or that we, you know, went crazy with our spending or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
So I think as long as you know and you personally feel good, especially when these are personal goals, but even at you know, our jobs, when we miss goals and there's a legitimate reason and expectation associated with that, it's a very different scenario than when you're just like, oh, I just didn't do it. You know, I didn't have any motivation. I lost my discipline, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I think that's important because, you know, I'll leave it at that. Next goal.
All right. Spending reduction. You didn't have a target up.
I didn't have a good benchmark to compare it against.
Oh yeah, that's right. So my target, and I've been doing this since 2014, tracking my expenses, was to have a 20% reduction in spending. And I
bet you beat that.
I am at 37%.
Okay, yeah. I'm just saying, like, how much of that was the quarantine helping you? Like you got put on lockdown. But either way, sorry, congratulations. That's awesome. Well done is what I meant to say.
Yes.
But also, I'm curious how much of that was the quarantine helping you?
Well, some of it was because we weren't paying, you know, childcare expenses.
Oh, daycare, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
But we were also...
Either way, take it. That's a win.
Yeah. But I mean, it's still real numbers, and we still chose to, you know, avoid certain expenses. So I'm still happy about it.
Nice. Congrats.
Yeah. And your goal was to live off the 25% of your salary that's remaining after your deferred compensation.
Yep. And not have to like dip into my savings to live.
And have you done that?
Yeah, I have, Mike. This is a trickier one to track, but yeah, I've been easily living off just that smaller percentage of my salary.
All right. Third goal was, for me, read 10 books. Because I've typically been very bad at reading books and staying focused on like sitting down and kind of that disciplined approach, but also finding enjoyment in it. Even though I've spent my whole life loving books, like the past few years, it's been kind of challenging for me. So I wanted to be deliberate about this. I set a goal of 10 books. And you set yours one more than me, just to mess with me, at 11.
It was 11, just to mess with you. Yeah.
So how many books have you read, Maggie?
I have read 20 and a half books.
That is not true. How many books have you really read?
I'm not kidding.
You've read 20 and a half,
post.
20 books.
Yeah.
In 6 months.
Well, half is Tools of Titan. I read a lot. That's why I was joking. Like, this is an easy goal for me. Like, I read a lot.
How you always complain that you don't have enough time and you've read 20 books?
Well, some of those are paper books and some of them I listen to on Audible. So it's a mix of audiobooks and physical books.
Oh, and you listen to them on 2x speed.
To be clear, I didn't even count Essentialism that I re-listened to. That would be 21 and a half if we count that. Oh my God.
Well, I have read 14 actual like typewritten books.
Well, the only difference is I don't listen to them on 2. I only listened to Essentialism on 2 speed because I was in a hurry to prep for our podcast and I'd already read the book. So I just wanted a refresher. But I listen to books while I'm like working out, cleaning the house, like anything I need to do. And so it's like when I'm not listening to podcasts, I'm always listening to like a good book. Mm-hmm. So probably half of these were physical paper books and half of them were audiobooks.
Wow. I'm more shocked by this one than your net worth growth. Well, I feel like I've really let myself down.
When you were talking about your 14 books, I didn't want to like, the other day you mentioned it. I didn't want to like, Oh,
you didn't want to hurt my feelings. So now you
want to make you feel
publicly?
bad when I hadn't counted all the books. I mean, I've been keeping like a goal tracking spreadsheet this year. And so I had to go through and like count them all. Mm-hmm. It just finished a book that was such a good book. It's called Such a Fun Age. Great book.
Well, congratulations, Maggie.
Yeah, thanks.
Very impressive.
Now I just got to finish that half a book, which is the other half is Tools of Titans, which is basically like 4 books. I should get a long book. Credit for that one.
My last 2 goals were kind of related, inspired by you. Be a better vegan and get more into minimalism, like identify more as a minimalist and as a vegan for that matter, because I aspire to be those things, but I don't really identify with them or identify as them, I should say. So the minimalism one was going very well. So my wife and I have watched a couple minimalist documentaries. We've like strategized about the house. We've been like getting rid of our stuff and our kids' toys and clothing and just like organizing. So I feel really good about this one. And I'm like,
I wish I had realized this. I would have brought it up last night to talk about it with you guys more. We haven't like talked about it a lot, but keep going.
The veganism one has been a real struggle. And here's why. I would have like my cheat days at the office because we always had like
I would
lunches.
have thought you'd be better now that you're not in the office.
Well, the thing is, I didn't realize how much those cheat days benefited me. And so like the first month and a half, I think it was like really tough for everybody. It was really tough for us. And kind of getting some nice snacks that were not vegan was an easy way for us to kind of cope with some of the challenges. And so
like what do you mean?
No, like just
I don't understand.
Like we typically buy like 1 bag of shredded cheese per week.
I picture you like during the quarantine being like stressed about when you say like to cope with the challenges, like you're on a video call and your kids are annoying you and you're just shoving shredded cheese into your mouth.
No.
Like you need the shredded cheese to cope with what's happening.
We are still buying a lot more cheese than we normally do. So I'm being over like more dramatic than I need to be. We still like we don't eat meat, we don't eat like dairy milk, we don't eat eggs, We don't buy anything that has
you're
those.
just saying you like cheap.
I just like cheese, and we bought some cheese, and
no problem.
I just
Don't
like.
be so hard on yourself.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Would you go from like 1 bag of shredded cheese a week to 2 bags?
Like 5 bags, not shredded cheese. Like we'll buy like slices of cheese, and I'll make grilled cheese sandwiches. And for what it's worth, whenever I'm grilling up that sandwich, I feel terrible about it because I'm like, if Maggie saw me right now, oh my God, I couldn't deal with her. All right, so how about yours? You had some other ones.
I had 4 other ones that I'll run through very quickly. One was to spend more quality and focused time with my kids and husband with my phone off. What's funny is until I went and some of my other goals are more top of mind. I went and reread the goals earlier tonight. And I was like, oh, that was one of my goals this year. I've been okay. I honestly forgot this was a goal, so it was a good reminder. And because I have a goal tracking spreadsheet, but this wasn't like a quantitative one, and so I don't track it on there. So I need to like put a column, like grade myself every week on it. So I'm doing okay. I certainly will say, look, I've been spending a lot of quality family time during quarantining, homeschooling with all the 3 kids were like with us for like the entire time and not going to their other parents' house like during the school thing because we were doing all the like virtual learning. And so I feel like I've had a lot of good quality family time during this quarantine with my family. But I could do a better job of like making sure my phone's put away and really, being focused and engaged.
Maybe you could put your Kindle away. I mean, you have been reading 20 books and listening to 20 books.
That's sometimes I'll be like really into an audiobook and I'll be like fixing dinner and the kids are trying to talk to me and I'm like pointing to my headphones. I'm like, can't hear you. Got my noise canceling headphones on. So maybe I should quit doing that. Good point. My other goal was to meditate 260 times a year, which the goal was 5 times a week on average. Look, I've kind of fallen on and off the wagon on this one. Like I've had some really good weeks where I hit my goal of 5 days a week. I've had some really bad weeks where like I didn't do it all week. It's been a little tougher in quarantine because I just didn't get as much alone time to be able to squeeze it in. And so I'd give myself like maybe 30 to 40% of my goal here. So I did set the goal where I could like go into overdrive second half of the year to make up for it if I want to. But I give myself like a 35% on this one. The other one was to write a blog post for Mostly Minimal Life every week. I did the math on this one. I get a 42% on this one, Mike, because there's been 26 weeks so far this year. I completed 11 posts and I missed 15 weeks. So that was a 42% completion rate. I can make up for it through the second half of the year if I get my act together and do 2 a week. And then my last one, and look, that one is just like, I've been so focused on the podcast. I have limited time. I've just kind of had to like let something go. So I put you before that one, Mike.
Thank you, Maggie.
Our last goal, which was kind of a joint goal, was to post a new podcast once a week for Friends on Fire. So this was just that we wanted to stick with our commitment to launch a new podcast every week. We've more than surpassed it. We're at 46 episodes. We actually, during quarantine, had so many things we wanted to talk about and post. And we had, a little bit less time with commutes and other things. And so we started doing 2 episodes a week for a few months. And then that actually got to be a little bit demanding on our time. And so we had to like pull it back a little bit. We've gone back to 1 a week. We may do some double weeks here and there. But we more than surpass that goal, and in a couple of weeks we'll be at our full goal for the year, and we'll continue putting out at least a weekly episode. So I've been very proud of our consistency on that one, Mike.
Yeah, I think we've done a great job, and it's been fun. It hasn't.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's an easy one because it's like fun and enjoyable, and we have so many things we want to talk about.
Yeah,
and it's been a great way to stay connected since we don't get to like run into each other in the office and catch up and stuff. So
we've run through all of our goals and our attainment towards them, and clearly we are not doing great on all of them. But I think another important thing to remember about goals is that it's important to also stick with it. And it doesn't matter so much if you aren't fully achieving your goals. If you are putting forth the effort and being mindful about improving your life or doing something different or making a change, then any progress is good progress. And the fact that we are halfway through the year and we know where we have dropped off a little bit and we know what we need to do to meet our goals means that we can reprioritize and focus some of our attention elsewhere so that we can achieve these goals we set out at the beginning of the year, despite all the crazy stuff that's going on in the world right now. So I feel good about all of these, even though we aren't at 100% attainment halfway through the year.
Yes, I agree, Mike. I think one of the things that I have noticed and been trying to sort of combat, but also give myself some kind of grace and compassion and space on is, it's been really hard at times to stay motivated during this. I don't even know if we still call it a quarantine or whatever's happening.
Nobody's quarantining anymore.
I think they're about to start re-quarantining just given how rates are skyrocketing. But the reality is most of us are still, if we can be, we're still working remote. A lot of people are not sending their kids to camp. I don't know how school is going to restart. There's a lot of places are starting to announce, but as they're starting to shut things down, some of that could even get kind of pulled back. And so we've been in a very unique, 3-4 months now. And I think it's taken its toll, and it can be hard to stay motivated. And I'm a highly motivated and driven person. I'm not nearly as disciplined as you are about many things, Mike, but I'm more disciplined than the average person, I would say. And I'm finding it hard a lot of days, hard to stay focused, hard to just, you when you're at home, you have all these it's different distractions than are in the office in a way. And so I think that, to me, and then I want to ask you some questions because you're very good at this, Mike. To me, I think one thing that is important to remember is just to give yourself some grace, right? Recognize that this is different and hard, and, give yourself a little bit of room and space and grace, but also, still challenge yourself and still set expectations. And, you can, have a day where you lose your focus and don't get done what you need to, but the next day, make up for it, right? And the next day kind of get back on things the way you should. So Mike, one of my questions for you is how, I don't even know if you can verbalize this, but how do you stay motivated and focused? And when you finish a meeting at work, do you immediately go to your to-do list and do you know what the next thing is that you needed to do? And, how are you staying on top of things?
That's an interesting question. I think I find great satisfaction in finishing things and getting through work as efficiently as possible. And so I am constantly motivated to clean out my inbox, send out all the emails I need to, tackle all the problems I need to solve, and then move on to something or nothing. I'm very happy moving on to a clean inbox and no action items. I'm not the kind of person that fears being bored. So I like getting through work, and that's how I stay motivated. I just keep chugging through until I'm done.
That's you're incredibly disciplined. What do you do when you're done? What do you do on the average day when you're you've gotten your inbox to zero, which is that a real thing? You've actually gotten your inbox to zero?
Sometimes, yeah. Oh, there's some things where I know I need to keep it there to remind me in 2 weeks to go do something. Yeah.
You're waiting on me or somebody.
Yeah. What do I do when I'm done? Sometimes there's just some fun things that I like to check on. Nobody else will find this fun, but there are certain
model airplanes.
No,
stock market.
Well, I do check the stock market throughout the day, but from a work perspective, I like to go and recheck forecast numbers, see what budget actuals are looking like, just kind of update some of my standing tools just to see if anything has changed and keeps me apprised of how the business is looking, even if I have no specific action items related to it. So that's sometimes what I do with my free time. Or I work on my model airplanes.
I was just going to say, I actually meant when you're done with work, but less so. I like that you're very, very astute that you go and make sure everything's running well within the business. I was more curious, what's the first thing you go do? Are you I want to go read a book? When you suddenly get a little bit of free time, how do you want to unwind? Is it you want to go play with your kids? You want to go have a beer out on the back deck? You want to read a book? All of the above?
All of the above. I do them for short periods of time. First thing I'll do is I'll go sit out on the deck, especially if it's nice. And then I'll read a book for a little bit. Not as many books as you, but I'll read some. And then as soon as the kids go to bed, I come down and watch a little TV because it's the first time I will have somebody not there bugging me to change the channel. So I like to go through and do all of them. So I kind of break up my evening into distinct activities. What do you like to do?
I the same thing. I mean, I my problem is I never feel done with anything. As we discussed on the Essentialism episode, I'm incredibly overcommitted. So I don't ever finish anything or feel like I actually I constantly feel like there's a million other things I need to be doing. But I often will just avoid those million other things, right? I have to compartmentalize stuff and say, you know what, I can't do it all. I need a break. And, I like to go for a walk, go work out, go exercise. Like same as you. I mean, I just like to listen to if I'm listening to a really good book or reading a good book, I sometimes just love to go for a walk and listen to my book, go for a walk, talk to my husband for a little while, work on some Friends on Fire podcast stuff is always, nice. I'm like halfway making a joke, but that's actually something I enjoy doing. So that feels less like work to me. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, this was an interesting question.
Yeah.
What was our episode about?
I don't know. Okay. So let's wrap up our top 3 takeaways. This is a little bit of a different, kind of bonus episode, Mike. Mm-hmm. And so takeaways are a little bit different, but since we're talking about goals and how to stay focused and achieve them, I'd say, our number 1 takeaway this episode is set goals, right? Setting goals and intentions that you write down, that you discuss with someone else, that you have some level of peer accountability with your partner, spouse, friend. Like in our case, Mike and I are holding each other accountable to our goals. So it helps to write it down, right? Number 2.
After you've set your goals, measure them throughout the year to find out if you are on track or off track, because what gets measured gets better. And you want to make sure that throughout the year you are seeing how you're doing, because if you get off track, you're going to need to pivot and make some changes.
Yeah. And that could be in a little notebook. I keep a Google Doc where I kind of have a little bit of a weekly tracker of what book I finished, what podcast we did, what blog, whatever my goals are, where I can kind of keep it written down. It really helps me personally. And then number 3 is, be flexible, be kind to yourself. There may be reasons that you aren't able to get to certain goals. There may be times that you want to adjust your goals like we talked about. And that's okay, right? These are goals you've set. They don't have to be rigid and set in stone if you have good reasons. You don't want to be too easy on yourself, but at the same time, you don't want to be too hard on yourself. So this was a good discussion. Thanks, Mike. We'll definitely do likely an end of year check-in, maybe a, Q3 check-in also at some point throughout the year.
Yeah, I need to get on my book reading. That's for sure.
Yeah. Do you not like audiobooks?
I've just never gotten really I used to listen to them in the car, but then my commute's only 4 minutes long. So
you may not have a lot of time like this, but I have a large amount of time when I am needing to physically be doing things like washing dishes, running, just walking around the house and putting laundry away and cleaning up and tidying. I am incapable of doing those things without listening to a podcast or a book, and sometimes music.
Oh, I don't think I can focus on that.
Oh, it makes me enjoy it. And I love books because it's all audiobooks are usually read by a really good narrator. Sometimes, especially when it's a nonfiction book, it's usually the author themselves reading it, which makes it it's like when you listen to Michelle Obama's book, she's the one reading it. So I'm I feel like I'm friends with Michelle Obama because she read to me her book for 20 hours. Hillary Clinton, same thing. She read her book. So there's a lot of nonfiction ones where it's that person's reading to you. And then the fiction ones, they're really good narrators that are doing different voices and have British accents. And so I say that as in you should give audiobooks a try, and you can get them for free through Libby. So,
okay, I'll try it. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to do a quick Mike's minute on the mic, but it's going to be different. It's going to be a Mike and Maggie minute on the mic. We combined to get a minute. So we each get 30 seconds.
Ooh.
So you read 14 books so far this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've read 20. Not that I'm trying to hit that point home, but I'm just saying.
But you're going to anyway.
Just kidding. Of those books that you've read, and then of the books that I've read, Mike, if you had to gift one of them to me to read, what would it be? And then I'll answer the same question for you.
That's a good question. Atomic Habits.
Oh, thanks. I'd actually love it. Do you have that book physically?
No.
Oh, well, I would actually like that as a gift. So that was no fun. No, that's a good one. That's on my reading list. I know one of my coworkers has it on his quarantine desk, and I keep joking that I'm going to go in and borrow it since he's not using it. Gosh,
there's just so many to choose from, right?
When you have to choose amongst 20 books, it's hard to choose. I was trying to just sort of decide if I want to give you like a fiction or a nonfiction book, because there's not necessarily one. I read a lot of books that I would put, they're like on the New York Times bestseller list, but I would put them in the category of like a rom-com, like a romantic comedy book, like a love story or something. So those are like fiction books that I like love listening to when I'm just kind of like doing stuff around the house. So I'm not going to gift you one of those because I don't want to make you sit through and watch a rom-com with me.
Yep. Thank you.
But your wife probably makes you do enough of that. I think, oh gosh, I think Small Great Things, which I told you about recently.
Okay. Well, which one was this?
This is the one I read when I was on vacation, and it was a gift from a coworker and a gift exchange. But it's a fiction book. And remember, they had a copy of it at the rental house that I was staying at.
Oh yeah.
It's a fiction book, but it is a story that covers it is a story about race. Put it that way. And it really gets into a lot of underlying issues and realities around systemic and institutional racism. And it really challenges the way people think, I think, in many ways. It's an amazingly written book and story, it's just really enjoyable from that standpoint. But it was thought provoking. And I always like a book that like makes me think differently about things.
All right. I will add it to my list.
I really enjoyed it. I have the physical book too, which I rarely have. So I should have brought it to you last night. I'll bring it to you next time I see you.
Okay.
And then the second one would be A Walk in the Woods. Have you ever read that?
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's really good. It's A Walk in the Woods. It's by Bill Bryson. He's like a famous author.
Nope, never heard of it.
Rediscovering America on the Appalachian Trail. I've read it before. I had reread it. I'd read it like many, many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I read it, it makes me want to walk the Appalachian Trail, which I've always wanted to do.
Well, this was a fun episode.
Yeah, it's a fun discussion. Thank you all for listening. If you have been challenged or inspired by what you've heard, please rate and review the show. You can also subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode. And if you have any thoughts or questions, we would love to hear from you. And you can leave a voicemail or text us at 404-981-3370. Or you can hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, or our website. And all of those links are in the show notes.
Thanks, Maggie. This was fun.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.